Okay, hello everyone. It's quite an unusual experience to be a web conf, not being able to see people as you speak to them. It's quite hard to get feedback from that, but yeah, it should be fun. Okay, so my talk today is going to be about what's bad in terms of AI and cybersecurity, what's good about it, and what's ugly about it. So I'm going to do a good, the bad, and the ugly take on this, and talk through each aspect and what I perceive as being the good, the bad, and the ugly of AI in cybersecurity. That's just a quick slide about me. I won't dwell on that. Other than the fact I have done some work with the NCCU on finding some bad guys, and I've spent a lot of time as an academic. And I've done some TV stuff as well, and I'm the managing director of Samurai Digital Security. So into the talk, right? So it's machine learning is the sort of the subset, if you like, of AI that is perhaps the most interesting development, particularly in terms of my research. So as I say, I'm still involved as an academic, although I'm a practitioner as well now with Samurai. But I do still get involved with the academic side and publish the odd paper and try and keep my hand in at that. And one of the papers which was published relatively recently and was lucky enough to win an award with Elsevier was intrusion detection systems using artificial neural networks. It wasn't titled that, it was titled something much more long and boring, but that's the nuts and bolts of it. And so if we're going to talk about the good, I'm just going to talk about that bit of research that we did. I did that research with Dr. Alex Shenfield and Dr. Aladdin Ayesh at Sheffield Hallam University and De Montfort University, respectively. And that was actually research that was developed from a real world problem. So that particular problem was when I was performing some network intrusion detection work for I better not mention the name of them, but although the name of them is in that paper, a very large online retailer which you would have heard of. And my goal there was to look at the network traffic. I had a network intrusion detection system that was put in place there that I could remotely connect to, and I was looking at the network traffic, what was going between the hosts on the network and the ingress and the egress traffic as well, what was going out to the internet and coming back in from the internet, looking for evidence of malicious data. And it was using the Security Onion suite, the open source Security Onion suite, Snort, Squeal, and Squirt, and other such tools. And it was signature based, so it was, and I know, you hear quite a lot, don't you? In fact, I think Meninda also talked briefly about signature-based systems as well. And they do have their flaws, but they also have their positives, and I'm going to talk about those later. The problem that I had in this particular instance was the signature-based system was firing an awful lot of false positives. And when I say an awful lot, what I'm talking about is, literally thousands a day. I could actually see the false positives coming. So, and by false positives, obviously, what I mean is, for those of you that aren't familiar with the term, when the system thinks something's bad's happening and it says, hey, there's some bad traffic coming in here, this isn't good, but in reality, that's not the truth, and the traffic isn't bad. It's just the signature-based system has recognized something, a pattern within the traffic, which it thinks is bad, says that it's bad, but the truth is actually it's not. It's benign traffic. And I was having an awful lot of these kind of signatures firing, and they were signatures that were firing based on shellcode. So, shellcode malware, which enables you to get control of a system and access a shell on it, get a command prompt on it, and basically take control of the whole system. And the network intrusion detection signature system was going, do you know what? I can see shellcode here, right? It was looking for patterns that were indicative of shellcode and firing. When the truth is, most of that traffic, in fact, all of that traffic that I looked at wasn't shellcode. There were mostly DLLs and image files and JPEGs and Windows updates were firing as shellcode as well. And in the end, I had to turn those signatures off because there was just too many false positives. And then when you think about that, you think, oh, okay, well, that's not very good, is it? Because once you've turned them off, you're then not going to catch any real shellcode, which basically rendered the whole thing useless. So I recognized that there was a problem there with signature systems, and that's why I had a conversation with a colleague of mine at Hallam about how we could potentially use AI to fix that problem, to actually, to detect shellcode traffic, so we could remove the problem of the false positive issue. Okay, so that was machine learning that we used to do that. So that was a machine learning system that we used for that, and it was artificial neural net. So we used ANNs in a sort of a black box approach. And without going into the technical details of it, essentially what we were doing was feeding the artificial neural net many different examples of shellcode, right? So we found those on the ExploitDB website, and there's other sources as well, which you can tap into to find examples of shellcode, and we're feeding that shellcode in as the binaries, byte by byte into the system, so that it would eventually learn what is bad and what is real, shellcode. Once we'd trained it with numerous data sets over a period of time, we then subjected it to a mix. We subjected it to good traffic, bad traffic, and a mix of good and bad traffic to see how it reacted. And the accuracy was really pretty impressive. So we got a 98% accuracy rating. So in other words, 98% of the bad stuff it was finding. And this was bad stuff that was different to what we trained it with, so it actually learnt the patterns, and a less than 2% false positive rate. So when you compare that with the signature based system, it was a massive improvement. So right there in itself, we saw a huge benefit in terms of adopting AI for network security. And that's ongoing research actually. At the moment, we're looking to take that a bit further, and we're quite excited about it. Right, so that was the good. So that's and there's other examples of good. Other people are getting it right. Okay, so there's a lot of great work going on in terms of companies adopting AI in cybersecurity and making a good job of it. And Meninda also mentioned about phishing, and I have seen some very clever and intelligent algorithms for detecting phishing, and I concur that that's a very positive use of AI. However, so the good, the bad, and the ugly. So the bad is, I also have a little bit of a pet peeve, and maybe you guys do as well, or some of you at least, over the overuse of the term artificial intelligence and machine learning when used in cybersecurity. It's almost like you can't sell any product now unless you have the term machine learning or artificial intelligence included in the rhetoric or the advertising for it. So and oftentimes it's pretty meaningless, or the amount of AI or machine learning is so little, it's almost inconsequential, but it's a buzzword. We try and squeeze that term in order to try and sell our products, and unfortunately I think it confuses the market a little bit, and it also devalues as well the genuine efforts of real researchers that are making proper progress in the area. So that's the bad side of it. So I did a quick Google search on AI in cybersecurity, and it gave me back 64 million hits on that. So it does seem like everybody seems to be trying to cash in on the phrase. I went on Google Ads, which is always a good indicator of people who are trying to make a monetary gain from the terms. And AI in cybersecurity was at £5.36 per click. So if you use that in terms of advertising, then everybody that clicks will pay £5.36. And it's an indicator. The higher that number is, generally speaking, the more competition there is for that to be used as an advert, which means that it's obviously a very popular phrase to try and sell products as a bit of rhetoric. Words that go along with it: next generation. What? Sorry, but next generation. What exactly does that mean? Obviously, the context changes depending on which vendor is trying to sell by using the term. It's rather meaningless in all honesty, and again, I think it can devalue the really good research that's taking place, and the companies that are actually adopting it and making a good job of it. It's hard to sort of filter those through and find those ones amongst all the people that are just casually using the term. Advanced threat protection, again, another 1.5 million using that. That's normally next generation, advanced threat protection, artificial intelligence. They seem to be badged all over. Not wanting to single out any particular technology, although I will, because I would say firewalls are probably the worst for this, in terms of badging that all over it. And sometimes those guys get it right, but they're doing a good job, but not always. So my advice would be, when it comes to purchasing software or hardware that's using these phrases. Try and get hold of somebody who knows what they're talking about rather than just listening to a salesperson or a vendor about them. Have a chat to somebody who actually, understands what those terms mean and can do a little research and find out whether actually it genuinely is making use of AI or it's just spinning you a yarn. This is just an example, and I won't say where I got this from, but the XXX machine learning artificial intelligence platform is based on industry leading machine learning engines seamlessly integrated into so and so suite of enterprise big data rules engine, Rati machine learning, real time, powerful analytics, informed executive decisions at the end. That is the kind of thing I don't like. It's quite a lot of rhetoric and spin, and you at the end of it, you're no better off apart from thinking, hey, it's really sciencey, therefore it must be good. And that's something I would warn against. Misleading rhetoric. So this is the other thing I hear about as well. And I'll give you, conscious of the fact I've only got 3 minutes left, I'll give you an example. I went in to see an organisation once, and I was sat at a table, and there was several knowledgeable people on the table. One of the people was, I won't tell you the company, but one of the people was a sales guy. And the sales guy sort of slammed his hands on the table. He goes, right. He says, I think everybody in this room can agree on at least one thing. Signature-based systems are dead. They no longer work. They are flawed. And I just sat there for a moment and let him get that out of his system and pointed out all the reasons why actually that isn't the case. Principally the reason for this is the fact that when we look at AI, it's great, but only when it works. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, oftentimes they're, particularly when we look at firewalls or things that make a decision whether something should be allowed through or not, are binary classification systems. They're either yes, let it through, or no, don't let it through. And the problem that you have, particularly when you think about firewalls, for example, is if you don't let it through, and that is actually real, good, proper data that you want to see, it's made a mistake, it's a false positive, it's got it wrong, you could lose money. And the firewall vendors don't want to get into trouble or get lawsuits against them because somebody who's purchased their system is now not getting through traffic, which is costing them money. So as a result of that, oftentimes these things are down-tuned very much. So like false positives are inversely proportional to false negatives. So to drop the number of false positives, you have to increase the number of false negatives, which means you're missing more of the bad stuff to get the false positives down. So it makes them less viable, and that's why it isn't going to replace a signature-based system for those reasons. You can use the things in tandem, but you don't say this one and not this one, for those reasons. You don't say, no signature-based systems, all we're going to use now is AI, because they both have their advantages in certain situations. Very quickly moving on to the ugly. Things go wrong in AI. And this is another problem as well. When we talk about machine learnings and systems learning from what they're presented with, they're only as good as the training sets which they're given. It's garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you I don't know if you guys remember Tay, which was an AI chatbot released on Twitter, which learns from human interactions. Unfortunately, it was totally violated by people who were sending it derogatory, inflammatory messages, the whole sort of red pilling and Gamergate, and the whole sort of sexist thing that it was being subjected to. And sexually charged messages caused Taybot to actually end up being rather rude and obnoxious, to the point where it was actually pulled. So that's just an example of where, it doesn't always work. It's all about the data set that it's subjected to. And very, very quickly, Meninda also mentioned this too, AI is now actually is coming into malware as well, right? It's not overly prevalent right now, but it's getting more so, particularly around detecting whether it's trying to be reverse engineered, or detecting whether you're trying to open it in a virtual environment to have a look at how it works. Because hang on, you're trying to find out how I'm operating here. I've worked out you're trying to do that. I'm just going to close down so you can't study me. And the malware also is looking at, it's the AI malware will only download the payload. It will only do the bad thing, which is the thing which there's a chance you could detect when it's found its victim. So it won't download the malware till it finds its victim, its intended target. It's sort of a seek and destroy type piece of malware. So it's looking, facial recognition, geolocation, voice recognition as well, which Meninda also mentioned. And when it finds those things, when it's identified its target through meeting that criteria, it then executes. And there was a presentation on this at Black Hat in 2018 for for some theoretical malware called Deep Locker, which demonstrated how well that works. And that'd be a good piece of further research if you wanted to look into that. So that's my quick sort of rundown of the good, the bad, and the ugly of AI in cybersecurity. And so I'd just like to, thank you very much for your time, for listening to me. And I'll pass you back to Michael now.